on self-contradiction and the path to true knowledge. Question. I would like to ask about self-contradiction. Everyone has self-contradictions. Some contradictions disappear through effort, but as we live, new contradictions seem to arise. Do contradictions continue to appear endlessly, or is there an end to them? I seek your guidance, Master. Answer. Contradictions continue to emerge when they possess mass that allows for their continuous production. When we have only acquired 50% of knowledge and insist that it is correct, contradictions inevitably arise. However, when we have attained 70% of knowledge and live by it, there are no contradictions. Contradictions occur when someone with 70% knowledge tries to live as though they have 80% or 90%. They also arise when someone with only 30% knowledge desires to live as though they have 40% or 50%. In essence, contradictions emerge when we attempt to live beyond what we have actually acquired. For example, in spiritual practice, regardless of whether we practice in the mountains or the fields, we must commit to at least 70% of the required training. However, if someone only completes 30% of their training and derives answers from it, they will begin asserting those answers as absolute truths. The moment they claim their partial knowledge as the correct answer, their growth in spiritual practice ceases. Another example is when university students claim to have found the correct answer while they are neither fully matured nor fully educated. If they insist on their knowledge at that stage, they can no longer progress. We have all experienced this. So how should we continue to learn and develop? Since we are seekers of knowledge, we must recognize that even after completing university, we have only acquired 30% of what we need. If someone with only 30% of knowledge starts asserting their beliefs as truth, they become stuck at that level. This phenomenon is evident among student activists. They were exceptionally intelligent in school, but when they encountered certain ideologies, they took them as absolute truths and stopped seeking further understanding. Had they continued to learn and grow, they could have contributed significantly to their nation and even the world. However, they stopped learning at a certain stage, leaving them unable to adapt to the rapid evolution of society. This also applies to those in politics, media, and other influential fields. Many of them, when they were young, believed they had found the answers and stopped growing intellectually. Society, however, continues to evolve and requires greater wisdom. But these individuals remain trapped in the knowledge they acquired long ago, making them appear outdated. To continue developing, we must acknowledge that even what we currently know is only our current perspective. It is not the ultimate truth. We must keep seeking, questioning, and discussing rather than claiming that we have all the answers. This process of inquiry and refinement is what it means to be a true seeker of knowledge. When someone reaches 70% of knowledge, they become capable of perceiving greater truths. At the 30% level, they are simply playing with their intelligence, unable to recognize true wisdom. However, when someone reaches 70%, they can receive and comprehend fundamental truths. This is when wisdom begins to unfold. Since we are experiencing this process for the first time in human history, failures are inevitable. But should we allow future generations to repeat these mistakes? If we recognize these issues, our successors can build upon our failures and achieve success. Just as parents take joy in seeing their children succeed where they themselves have failed, we should strive to ensure that future generations overcome our shortcomings. Every person in Korea is a seeker, seeking knowledge, seeking logic, and seeking to resolve contradictions. Contradictions in society are also valuable lessons. Not a single one is useless. Instead of merely identifying contradictions and calling them wrong, we must recognize them as part of a process. If democracy has failed today, it is because of past mistakes. We must analyze these contradictions and use them as resources to build a better future. If we simply dismiss failures as failures, we will never see solutions. Everything is part of a process. Contradictions arise from mistakes, but they also provide valuable material for creating new visions. Today, contradictions are surfacing in human civilization because people try to live by their own logic rather than discovering the true laws of nature. Humanity is still waiting to uncover the ultimate truth. That is the path of the true law, Jongbub, self-contradiction and the path to growth. A simplified explanation. 1. Why do self-contradictions arise? 1. Contradictions happen when people try to live beyond what they truly understand. 2. If someone has only learned 30% but tries to act as if they know 50%, contradictions arise. 3. When knowledge reaches 70%, and a person lives according to that level, contradictions disappear. 2. The danger of stopping at partial knowledge. 1. If someone gains a little knowledge and believes they have all the answers, their growth stops. 2. Many intelligent students or activists grasp certain ideas early, but claim them as the ultimate truth, preventing further learning. 3. This is also common among politicians and media figures who once were smart, but stopped evolving with society. 3. How to overcome self-contradictions. 1. Instead of claiming to have the answer, continue seeking, questioning, and discussing. 2. Learning never stops. What we know now is just a part of the bigger truth. 3. People should aim for at least 70% of knowledge before asserting beliefs. 4. Why society's contradictions matter. 1. Societal contradictions, such as political failures, are not just mistakes, they are learning opportunities. 2. Instead of dismissing failures, we should analyze them and use them to build a better future. 5. The ultimate goal. Seeking the true law. GONG. 1. Humanity is still searching for fundamental truths. 2. Contradictions exist because people rely on personal logic instead of discovering natural laws. 3. True wisdom emerges when one reaches a deep level of understanding and remains open to continuous learning. Conclusion. Contradictions are not obstacles, but signs that we need to keep learning and growing. Rather than claiming to have all the answers, we must remain seekers of deeper wisdom. I wrote the story based on the above article. The Maze of Contradictions. One day, Yunseo, a philosopher and seeker of knowledge, realized after deep contemplation that he was living in a vast contradiction. Having graduated from university and entered society, he took great pride in his knowledge, yet he felt increasingly confused as time passed. The more he thought he knew, the more he sensed something was missing, and the world constantly challenged him. One rainy night, Yunseo stumbled upon an old bookstore in a quiet alley. The faded sign read, "The Maze of Contradictions." Intrigued, he pushed open the door and stepped inside. The bookstore was filled with old books, and in the center sat an elderly man with a long white beard. As soon as the man saw Yunseo, he spoke. "You, my friend, are searching for something, aren't you?" Yunseo hesitated, but then replied calmly, "I seek the truth, but the more I learn, the more contradictions arise. I don't even know if I'm on the right path." The old man smiled and handed him a thick book. "Read this, and you might find the answer you seek. But remember, do not believe everything in this book." Yunseo opened the book and began to read. It told the story of a man named Tae-woo, who, in his youth, was passionate about student activism, determined to change the world. He believed the ideology he learned in university was absolute truth and fought tirelessly for his cause. But as time passed, his beliefs clashed with reality, and contradictions began to surface. Tae-woo eventually became a politician. However, he found himself unknowingly adopting the very practices he had once opposed. To survive within the corrupt political system, he had to compromise, and before long, he started resembling the very people he had once criticized. He was torn. Had his younger self been righteous, or was his current self simply more aware of reality? As Yunseo read, Tae-woo's struggles felt eerily familiar. He recalled the values he had once held in his university days. Back then, he had believed them to be absolute truths. But now, after experiencing the complexities of society, he found himself questioning them. So what then was the real truth? Had he been mistaken in his beliefs? In the final chapter, Tae-woo abandoned politics and retreated to a small village in the mountains, living as a farmer. He no longer sought definitive answers. Instead, he embraced nature and continued to learn, accepting that life itself was a journey. Yunseo closed the book and looked at the old man. "This book doesn't give a definitive answer." The old man nodded. "That's right. The moment you try to eliminate contradictions, you create new ones. What matters is how much you learn and grow through them." Yunseo quietly left the bookstore. His mind was still full of questions, but one thing was clear. Truth was not something fixed. It was something to be continuously explored, and the journey itself was what led to personal growth. From that day on, Yunseo decided not to fear contradictions. Instead, he chose to learn from them, to engage in an ongoing dialogue with the world. That, he realized, was the true path of a seeker.